The Merton Mysteries, a Learn English radio series from the British Council. Dangerous Driving, Episode 10.
Hello, my name's Amanda Carlton.
And I'm David Evans. And in this series, we aim to improve your English language skills with the help of a series of crime mysteries.
Inspector Tate and PC Gweno have been trying to solve the mystery of a stolen sports car which was found burnt out in some woods just outside Merton. They discovered it belongs to a famous professional footballer called Antonio Paredes.
And when a well-known criminal called Stacker Simpson confessed to the crime, the inspector thought the case was closed. But PC Gweno wasn't sure that Stacker was telling the truth, and so she continued her investigation.
And in the last programme, she interrupted an interview between the inspector and Stacker to tell them what she had discovered. Here's what happened.
I'm sorry, Inspector.
Gweno! What do you think you're doing?
They told me you were in here with Stacker, and they told me that when you arrested him, he had a large sum of money with him.
Yes, and I am now trying to interview him, and I do not want to be disturbed.
I know. I'm sorry, Inspector. It's just that I know where Stacker got that money.
Of course you don't.
Oh, but I do. Ed McCain gave you that money, didn't he?
What?
Didn't he, Stacker?
I don't know what you're talking about.
What was the deal, Stacker? Do you get £5,000 now and £5,000 when you come out of prison? Is that it?
You're talking rubbish.
Oh, no, I'm not. Because it wasn't you driving that car on Saturday, was it? It was Antonio Paredes.
I'm sorry, Gweno. What are you saying?
I'll explain in a moment, Inspector. Right now, you and I need to get to Merton Stadium as fast as we can, because for the next hour, that's where McCain and Paredes will be, and we need to speak to them.
So in our first scene today, Inspector Tate and PC Gweno are in a car on the way to Merton Stadium. As the inspector drives, PC Gweno explains what she thinks happened on Saturday afternoon. She talks about the footballer Antonio Paredes and his manager Ed McCain. She says,
My guess is that before the game on Saturday, they had a huge argument.
She goes on,
McCain told Paredes that he wasn't in the team and that he would be on the substitutes bench.
That made Paredes so angry that he left the stadium and got into his expensive sports car and then crashed into several other vehicles. Inspector Tate adds,
And then, when Paredes realised what he'd done, he tried to destroy the evidence.
And here are 3 questions for you. According to PC Gweno, why did Ed McCain have to do something about the situation? What exactly did he do? And why does PC Gweno start getting angry with the inspector at the end of the scene?
Well, we know that Ed McCain and Antonio Paredes don't like each other.
Yes.
So my guess is that before the game on Saturday, they had a huge argument. McCain told Paredes that he wasn't in the team and that he would be on the substitutes bench. It was supposed to be an easy match, so he thought he had the chance to teach Paredes a lesson. Now, that made Paredes even more furious, so he stormed out of the stadium and jumped in his car.
So that's why you think it was Paredes who was driving the car when it crashed?
Exactly. The witness said she was sure it was a young man.
Right. And then, when Paredes realised what he'd done, he tried to destroy the evidence.
By setting fire to the car in the woods. But of course that didn't work because we managed to find him.
Yes. I told you he was a professional footballer, didn't I?
You did, Inspector. Anyway, when I went along to the training ground and spoke to Ed McCain, he realised what had happened and he knew he had to do something. Paredes is his best player and he couldn't afford to lose him for the next match.
And so he contacted his old friend, Stacker Simpson.
and offered him a large sum of money to say he was the driver of the car that afternoon. Stacker knew it would mean going to prison.
But Stacker doesn't really care about that, does he? He spent most of the last 20 years in prison. It's his second home.
Exactly.
So, it's just as I thought, Gwenno.
What do you mean, Inspector?
I always knew it would be something like this.
No, you didn't.
I was always suspicious of Stacker. I was sure it couldn't be him.
But you weren't, Inspector.
Now, let's not argue, PC Gwenno. I tell you what, why don't you switch the radio on? Let's find out what's happening at the stadium, shall we?
Oh, Inspector.
The radio, Gwenno.
Oh, all right.
So, it's still 0-0 here at the Merton Stadium.
And so, why did Ed McCain have to do something about the situation? PC Gwenno explains.
Paredes is his best player, and he couldn't afford to lose him for the next match.
And what did Ed McCain do? The inspector says.
So he contacted his old friend Stacker Simpson.
And PC Gwenno adds.
And offered him a large sum of money to say he was the driver of the car that afternoon.
And why does PC Gwenno start getting angry with the inspector at the end of the scene? Because he says,
I always knew it would be something like this.
And of course, we know that's not true. PC Gwenno tries to argue with him, but the inspector doesn't want to discuss it and says,
Why don't you switch the radio on? Let's find out what's happening at the stadium. You're listening to the Merton Mysteries, a Learn English radio programme from the British Council.
In the next scene, we stay in the car with Tate and Gwenno as they listen to Rona Wilson's football commentary on the radio. We hear her say,
So it's still 0-0 here at the Merton Stadium.
In other words, there has been no score. But what happens next in the football match? What is Ed McCain's reaction to it?
Now, let's not argue, PC Gwenno. I tell you what, why don't you switch the radio on? Let's find out what's happening at the stadium, shall we?
Oh, Inspector.
The radio, Gwenno.
Oh, all right.
So, it's still 0-0 here at the Merton Stadium. And it's Antonio Paredes on the ball. He looks up, waits for a moment. Oh, no! Oh, no! He waits too long. He's lost it. Robertson is racing down the right wing. He gets to the corner flag and sends it across. And goal! It's a goal!
Oh, dear.
Yes. Ed McCain's not going to be happy.
Ed McCain stands on the touchline and hangs his head. Could this be the end of his career at Merton United? And the referee blows his whistle for half-time.
Just
Well, I
park
don't know
over
what
there,
Ed McCain
Inspector.
is going to say in the changing room, but it will have to be something very, very special.
Right, here we are. Come on, Gwenno. Now's our chance to speak to them.
Well, what happens next in the football match? Antonio Paredes loses the ball and the other team score a goal. And what is Ed McCain's reaction to that? The commentator says,
Ed McCain stands on the touchline and hangs his head.
In other words, he's really not happy. And then the referee blows his whistle for half-time, just as Tate and Gwenno arrive at the stadium. You're listening to the Merton Mysteries, a Learn English radio series from the British Council. And don't forget, you can find more resources at our website at learnenglish.britishcouncil.org. In the next scene, Ed McCain is talking to his team at half-time in the changing room. He is absolutely furious with them. He says,
What did you think you were doing?
and he goes on,
I want all of you to go out in the second half and give it everything you've got.
and here are two questions for you. Who in particular does he blame for Merton United's problems? And what happens before he can finish his speech? Here's the scene.
What did you think you were doing, Paredes? After everything I've done for you this week, and then you play like that? You're a disgrace, Paredes. Do you hear me? Now I want all of you to go out in the second half and give it everything you've got. Absolutely everything. And that includes you, Paredes. Do you understand? I don't care what you do. I don't care how many people get hurt. We have to win this game. Do you hear me? Are you even listening, Paredes? Right. This is the police. What do you think you're doing?
We are Merton Police.
I don't care who you are. Get out of this changing room.
I want everyone to stay right where you are. I said, don't move.
And I said, get out of this changing room.
Are you Edward McCain?
You know I am.
And are you Antonio Paredes?
Of course he is.
Antonio Paredes, you are under arrest on suspicion of dangerous driving.
What?
Leaving the scene of an accident and
Edward
arson.
McCain,
You
are under arrest on suspicion of
you are completely wrong about this. This is ridiculous. You are gonna be sorry.
So who in particular does Ed McCain blame for his team's problems? Antonio Paredes, of course. He says,
You're a disgrace, Paredes.
and what happens before he can finish his speech? Tate and Gweno rush into the changing room. The inspector says,
We are the Merton Police. I want everyone to stay right where you are.
and then PC Gweno turns to Paredes and says,
Antonio Paredes, you are under arrest on suspicion of dangerous driving.
She continues to list the other charges against him, while Inspector Tate tells Ed McCain that he is also under arrest. And so, PC Gweno and Inspector Tate have solved another Merton mystery. But before we finish today, let's listen to Merton FM and hear what Rona Wilson has to say as the two teams come out to start the second half.
The two teams come out onto the pitch for the second half. I have some extraordinary news for you. Antonio Paredes will not be playing in the second half. I repeat, Antonio Paredes is not on the pitch. There is a rumour that both Paredes and his manager Ed McCain have been arrested by the Merton Police. We'll confirm this as soon as we hear more. So stay right here with me, Rona Wilson, at the big match on Merton FM.
Now here's a chance to hear a part of today's drama again.
Do you hear me? Are you even listening, Paredes?
Right. This is the police.
What do you think you're doing?
We are Merton Police.
I don't care who you are. Get out of this changing room.
I want everyone to stay right where you are. I said, don't move.
And I said, get out of this changing room.
Are you Edward McCain?
You know I am.
And are you Antonio Paredes?
Of course he is.
Antonio Paredes, you are under arrest on suspicion of dangerous driving.
What?
Leaving the scene of an accident and
Edward
arson.
McCain,
You
are
have
under
to say
arrest
it.
on suspicion of
You
dangerous
are
driving.
completely wrong about this.
Course of justice.
This is
Something which
ridiculous.
later rely on
You
in
are
court.
gonna be sorry.
Anything you do
Now,
say
believe me, you are going to be...
But that's all for today. You've been listening to The Merton Mysteries, a British Council Learn English radio series. And remember, you can find more resources at the British Council Learn English website at learnenglish.britishcouncil.org. Until next time, from Amanda Carlton and me, David Evans,
Goodbye.
goodbye.